Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Rachel Green. I'm the Chief Executive of ICLA. It's lovely to have you all here. We're just getting ourselves around the technology. This is an unusual way to be launching an event, but it speaks volumes to what we're trying to get up and running from today. Today's a very special moment for us here at ICLA and also for me personally. A very exciting day also for the movement of peer-based mental health support services in Australia. A little bit of housekeeping before we begin. We have a couple of hashtags. If you're out there on Twitter or Facebook, we'd love you to contribute live to the social media conversation using the hashtags #YouHaveeFriend or #eFriendSupport. Those will be, I think, appearing somewhere on the screen. And also, if you'd like to post questions into the chat function of the site, we've got a Q&A panel a little bit later after we've had a couple of speakers, and we'd love to get your questions. Feel free to get them started now. So we've got a few when we get to the panel. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge I'm on Gadigal land in the Eora Nation, pay my respects to their elders past and present. And I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community, because of course we're dialing in from around the country this morning, and we pay our respect to their elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. I'd also like to pay some respect to the friends, guests and colleagues who are with us today who have their own personal lived experience of mental health issues or suicidality and bereavement. It is through the movement begun by some of the leaders of our consumer movement, and through all of your experiences and your generosity in sharing those with us and with the sector, that we're able to expand our understanding and come up with innovative new solutions to mental health based on the experience of people who've been through it themselves. I'd like to welcome some special guests who are with us this morning. Christine Morgan joining us, she's the Chief Executive of the National Mental Health Commission. Janet Ma, patron of ICLA. Irene Gallagher, the CEO of Being, the New South Wales Peak for Consumers. Rebecca, one of our eFriend peers, is going to be joining us. Our chair of ICLA, Nigel Harvey, other special guests, and obviously friends and colleagues. It's lovely to be with you. I can't see any of you, so exciting to have you here, and thanks for joining us. So I just want to tell you a little bit about how we got here. This is a really big step for ICLA. This is the first service that we will be delivering nationally around the country, and we're really proud to have undertaken some of the development work to get to this point. ICLA has a history, a 30-year history born out of the consumer rights movement in the 80s in supporting people with mental health issues, and we're really driven by a belief in the right of people with mental health difficulties and psychosocial disability to live well, independently, and have contributing lives in the community. We partnered with Roses in the Ocean beginning last year to develop a suicide prevention and recovery centre, Spark, and we were close to opening the doors to Spark when COVID-19 hit. Our work in developing that had led us to go through a co-design process with people with a lived experience, and eFriend was actually originally designed as the pre-stay component of coming to stay in the suicide prevention and recovery cottage. Unfortunately, when COVID hit, it meant that we couldn't immediately open the doors to the residential service, and so the government has leveraged that investment in us to develop eFriend as part of Spark and scale it up nationally to make it available. And I think that's really important. These are really challenging times. They're difficult for everyone. I'm finding them difficult myself. Personally, I've been concerned about the future and climate change. We had these unprecedented, devastating bushfires, and now the pandemic has thrown any sense of routine or stability out the window. And all of that is on top of whatever stresses people might be feeling in their own personal lives. So while some people are taking stock and getting a lot of positives out of this period, others are having a really difficult time. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that it's okay not to be okay. And really the underlying principle for eFriend is that we know not everyone has someone that they can reach out to. eFriend is a first of its kind approach to mental health support. At ICLA, we really have a strong belief in peer workers. We have an emerging peer workforce. It's been really exciting for us to work with the peers within our organisation to actually build and test eFriend and get it up and running. And there's a few features of it that make it really unique that I just want to share with you. eFriend is the planned process of speaking one-to-one to a single consistent support person. That's really important, and that's something I've heard over the past 10 years of going around and talking to consumers and family members of people with mental health issues around the country, is the difficulty they find in having to retell their story over and over again. So eFriend gives you access to a consistent person to speak to. It also blends in some things which haven't been blended before. So we're using the approach normally used by telepsychology, where you book a session and you see that person and then you see them again. So it's an extension on and really building on the work of existing peer and phone-based and online-based services, in that you can talk to someone and then you can talk to them again. They can call you back. We're building in the role of a peer worker, and we're actually using the befriending model, which comes out of the UK's approach to combating loneliness. Befriending is an established methodology that sets up a caring and friendship-like relationship, but with clear boundaries to provide support to someone, and specifically to reduce their sense of loneliness and isolation. We're really excited to be able to kick off today. Big day for us, big day for me personally. 25 years ago, you wouldn't have expected people with their own history of mental health to become CEOs and launch services. So really this feels like a pretty big moment for me personally. I'm really excited for you all to hear about it a bit more and get the chance to start having a look at it online. And with that in mind, I would like to welcome Christine Morgan, CEO of the National Mental Health Commission and Suicide Prevention Advisor to the Prime Minister for the official launch. Thanks, Christine.
So let me just see. Can people now see me? Can people now see me? Rachel, isn't this, and welcome to everybody. And I think this just shows that we are in a brand new world, aren't we, where a lot of something as important and as significant for you as the launch of this fantastic new service we're doing in a completely new way. So wonderful to hear that history, Rachel, and to understand from the smaller beginnings where you now are today. And can I personally congratulate you as CEO with a lived experience. It is wonderful, and I think goes to the core indeed of what we're talking about today, that we can bring lived experience right to the front and centre of the work we do with people who are challenged around their mental health. But look, I also would like to start today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands upon which all of us are meeting, and to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I would also like to pay my respects to all of those of us who have suffered in any way or are challenged by mental health challenges, illnesses, those of us who are also challenged by thoughts of suicidality. So these are times when those things can come to the fore, but as I like to say so frequently, our mental health is as integral to our humanity as our physical health. And in this time that we are going through, where, Rachel, you've just mentioned some of the challenges we are facing, our mental health, I think, has never been more important. In fact, I was just reflecting on this the other day, that I've had the opportunity, I guess, of speaking to many people around the country about the reality of COVID-19 and what it's doing for us. You referenced the bushfires. They were horrific. But I think one thing that we knew about the bushfires was it had happened before, not of that magnitude, but we had disasters before, and we knew the end would come. One of the challenges we have at the moment is we really don't know how long this is going on for. We've done a fantastic job here in Australia. I really think we can hold our heads high in terms of how we have faced the challenges of COVID-19. And it's actually quite exciting, but also unnerving as we start to lift some of those restrictions, but we don't know what's going to happen from here. And as somebody said to a few of us the other day, when we are dealing with anxiety, and this often comes up in services such as the one we're launching today, where we talk with people about our anxieties and we try and help each other to, if you like, reframe that and not be so concerned. One of the things we have, or challenges we have about COVID-19, is that we are really anxious. So all of us are learning to live with the reality of that and the reality of the impact that it has on our mental health and well-being. One of the most important things, therefore, that we can do is to reach out and connect. We keep hearing this phrase of social isolation, social distancing. And pretty early on, many of us in the sector said we want to change that terminology. So we talk about physical distancing with social connectedness. Social connectedness, being connected to our fellow human beings, is core to who we are. And again, underpins this wonderful new service which is being launched today, which in a virtual world enables people to be friends, but to be friends with a special purpose, to be friends where I can take my lived experience of mental health challenges, mental illness, and use it to help you unlock and tell us what you're feeling, unlock the way forward, unlock a way to recovery. Those of you who know me know that I've had many years now of working in the mental health sector, and I'm absolutely passionate, and share this with Rachel, about the role of lived experience. There is no other way to actually capture the heart and essence of what it is that we face when we're dealing with mental health challenges. They're not like physical health challenges that you can see and feel and measure with tests. They're much more complex than that. What peer workers enable us to do, what people with lived experience enable us to do, is to actually connect with people who can role model for us hope and a pathway to recovery. That, I think, is probably the single most important thing that peer workers bring to a combined team. Our clinical workers are absolutely critical for us, but it truly is through understanding what others have gone through and seeing the reality of recovery that all of us who are challenged can say there is hope and there is a way through. I think another thing that peer workers do for us, which is really important, is that it enables us to find our voices. So if we have a lived experience of mental illness, of being mentally unwell, we can learn through our peer workers that we can advocate for ourselves, we can find a voice. Peer workers also remind us of that absolute criticality of our treatment and our approaches to care being person-centred and trauma-informed. So we embrace peer workers. I think one of the challenges we have as we come out of COVID-19 and look for the way forward is how can we continue to increase the participation of peer workers across all sectors, all parts of our sector, and how can we truly enable that to unlock not only our reach, but our capacity to engage with people as they go on their particular journeys. I think another part that is really important, and I've seen a little bit of change in this, but halfway through last year when I had an opportunity to go around the country and talk to people about mental health, I was astounded and saddened by the levels of stigma that still exist for mental illness, mental health in Australia. Perhaps one silver lining that may come out of all that we've learned through the bushfires and now through COVID-19 is what I began with saying, which is that our mental health is an integral part to who we are as human beings, and that all of us have not only the right, but the responsibility to be looking after it. So I come to eFriend's virtual peer support service. And Rachel, I have to congratulate you and your team on such a wonderful service. As you said, I think some of the things that strike me about it is that it provides consistency. Now, we know that the only way we can communicate our mental health challenges is by talking, is by sharing. And it is such a barrier if we need to tell our story over and over and over again. So one of the things about eFriend virtual peer support service is that you have the same peer worker that you are talking to all the time. You not only therefore have consistency, but once you've shared your story, then you can really begin that process of walking down your journey towards recovery. So I think that is an absolutely critical part of it. I think another thing that I really respect about ICLA is that it encourages truly open conversation. To talk about mental health challenges means sometimes going really deep. And this service will enable you to connect with a peer worker who really cares and does want to hear the reality of it. So in this time when we are physically distant from each other, in this time when we are needing to learn how to have services in a whole different way, and we've seen that with the recent launch of telehealth services for mental health services, this is a new way we can do it. This is a way where it doesn't matter where we may be, we can connect from our living room to talk to somebody who really cares as a virtual eFriend. So congratulations, Rachel, congratulations to you, to all your team, to everyone at ICLA. This is a wonderful, wonderful service where we're launching. It is one which at the core of it has lived experience and is based upon the principles of openness, caring, communication and consistency. So I'm delighted to launch eFriend Virtual Peer Support Service today.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks so much, Christine. I think we're going to see a video now to give everyone a bit of an insight into eFriend.
Being home alone is starting to get to me.
Let's talk about it.
It's all too much. I don't want to be here anymore.
I understand.
My counsellor's good, but I need someone who knows what I'm going through as well.
It's okay, I'm listening.
I need to talk to somebody about how I'm feeling.
I'm really glad you reached out.
I'm in a full house, but feel so alone.
You're not alone.
In difficult times, it's good to know you're not alone. It's good to know an eFriend peer is here for you. eFriend offers peer support for your mental health and well-being via a chat or video link. It's free, personalised, and provided by qualified peer workers who have lived experiences similar to what you might be experiencing. It's good to have an eFriend peer who is there to hear you. You can speak to the same eFriend peer up to 6 times. An eFriend peer who doesn't judge, who's been there before and can provide hope. An eFriend peer who understands, who's been through their own challenges. An eFriend peer who is trained in trauma-informed care. An eFriend peer who can support you and connect you to more services if that's what you need. An eFriend peer who is there for you, a buddy while you work on you. To book a time for a chat with your eFriend peer, visit efriend.org.au.
I'd now like to warmly welcome Janet Ma, who is a very dear friend and also the patron of ICLA. Janet was one of the inaugural commissioners of the National Mental Health Commission and has long been a champion of mental health consumer rights in Australia. Thank you, Janet. It's great to have you here, Janet.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's lovely to be able to speak with you in this way. I never thought as an old chook I'd ever be in a position to be floundering around internet communications of some kind. Here we go. Well, it's also lovely to be here for the launch of the eFriend program, and to think that it's arisen in my lifetime is quite a nice thing to have happen. While Christine was speaking, I did have the thought that perhaps many people see the experience of mental health issues as not just challenges, but a total disaster. But I see the life living with mental health issues as not just a challenge and a disaster, which at times they are, but definitely it's a gift. And I see those of us online and in other parts of Australia who see their challenge or their issues as a gift. We are the source people for the potential peer workers, because the gifted are those who can use their experiences in peer work. It's a bit pretentious to talk about being gifted because you have mental illness, but there we go. For over 50 years, I've travelled through my life with schizophrenia as my daily companion. And at times this has defined me and my existence. Nowadays, it doesn't define me, who I am, or what I do. It informs me. My experience of living with long-term mental health issues does and has informed my way of dealing with the world. Through surviving everything that accompanies this kind of history, I, like so many of my fellow travellers, am committed to ensuring reform in the ways we deal with people who experience mental health issues, emotional distress, and the impacts of trauma in their lives. Now, we're all ranting about peer work here and how it is wonderful, but many people may not understand accurately what is a peer worker and what is this program we're talking about and how does it all fit together. And I challenge anyone who says this is all about increasing the peer workforce and its influence. I don't believe it is. I hope it's not. That's almost a sin to say that in some circles. I hope this is about increasing the competencies and the expertise areas of peer work in a quality framework. There are too many peer workers out there who are not involved in a quality framework and therefore their peer work is less than optimal. So from our point of view, there's no one in the world quite like someone who's trod this path and who has grown and matured into their hopeful future through this recovering journey. People like us bring with us an expertise and an understanding of what helps and hinders on the way. In recognition of that energy and expertise, there's been a very strong movement in Australia that seeks to employ people with these qualities and experiences in mental health settings. This process, now known as peer work, began in 1992 at Rozelle Hospital in Sydney and is now mainstream and available as a professional, non-clinical support in most mental health services and community mental health settings. The mental health peer workforce is currently reaching a level of maturity where aspects of that work are becoming specialised. There are many forms of specialised peer work developing in the sector in recent times. I can't name them all, but we have peer workers who specialise in respite support, in training and development, in forensic support work, in emergency departments, in crisis service work, in suicide prevention supports and in disability supports, and it goes on and on. And specialisation areas are growing, and that's why eFriend has a particular tone about this is a development that we look forward to. In these times of isolation and COVID-19 restrictions, there have been many people, and we all know them, whose mental health challenges and needs have accelerated. People's usual informal supports and emotional props have not been so readily available to them, and a number of people are seeking help from sources that are either untrustworthy or they're not familiar with and don't know how to negotiate them. When they will connect to eFriend, they'll be assigned to a peer worker, one of these wonderful people I've just described, who has a mental health recovery expertise. This peer will connect them with up to 6 sessions that will hope to offer purposeful inputs into that individual's personal recovery connections. Through enabling the person to share, they will be guided to an approach where whatever supports and connections may be available. Using their personal insights, they'll work to add value to the interactions with those people who approach eFriend. Their online discussions with the person will support them towards connecting with appropriate providers, organisations or support. This program is new. It's a new take on traditional peer work. It's an online, time-limited, one-on-one connection. It complements the other support lines and services out there and doesn't compete. It's an add-on. It supports linkages and enables connection for those isolated or suffering due to the isolation and disconnection they experience. From my perspective and from many of us with lived experience, I offer a welcome to eFriend, and it's a welcome part of this sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janet. It's wonderful to have you here with us this morning. I'd now like to introduce one of our eFriend peers who's going to be joining me to come and talk to you about her personal experience as an eFriend peer. This is the new way we bring speakers on. I'd like to introduce Rebecca, one of our eFriend peers, to tell us about her lived experience and her experience as an eFriend peer. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks, Rachel. Good morning, all. My name is Rebecca Addai. I would like to introduce myself as one of the peer support workers in the eFriend team. It is with great honour that I have this opportunity to speak to you all today, as our team have been working tirelessly to be able to offer eFriend, which in my opinion is an incredibly powerful platform to help those that want and need help. We are being faced globally with a pandemic that has forced every single person to adapt and deal with these challenging times and juggle various commitments, both professionally and personally. The fact that each and every one of you have shown up today prioritising the issue of mental health in our community brings me personally great hope. In my personal opinion, we must unite on these matters. This hope is one of the most important aspects of the eFriend platform. You may be asking, what is it that you have to offer? Well, I'm glad that you asked. A peer support worker is an individual who has personal lived experience with mental health, trauma or distress. This means that whilst I have a broad scope of training, my personal lived experience is my most valuable asset. I have lived through mental health, addiction, suicidal idealisation, just to name a few. I have been clean and sober 8.5 years and been on a continuous road to recovery ever since. These monsters that used to define me do not haunt me on a daily basis. I am most of the time happy, joyous and free, and have been gifted with a life that I never thought was available to me. This has not been something I was able to achieve alone. I had people to hold my hand and love me until I was able to love myself. My personal inspiration to be a peer support worker with eFriend was that I was gifted with this same hope. I have been given a second chance of life, and this was because there were brave people who were willing to share their experience with me. They had been where I had been, and I believed them. I want to be able to offer the same to others. What were some of my darkest days are now my gift, as they are what allows me to provide others with that same hope and opportunity for change. I believe this is what we are offering at eFriend. There are people out there desperate for support who perhaps have not had this sort of service available to them before. This could be due to remote living or other emotional or physical barriers. But there are also people now whom have perhaps never experienced a need for this sort of support before. People experiencing isolation. Loneliness and disconnection can be the root of many mental disturbances. What I believe we offer is the space for connection, a space for a trusting, intimate and consistent relationship, a type of relationship that some may never have experienced before. For someone to say, I hear you, to say that you are not alone, to say that I have been where you have been, that you matter, and I can help you find a way out. The solution is connection. As a peer worker, I believe wholeheartedly in our team at eFriend and in ICLA. I feel this is a revolutionary and groundbreaking service that can reach many people and offer real hope for those that are seeking it. A special mention to the incredible peer support workers that work alongside me, whom inspire me every day. To my manager, Penny Horsfield, and our CEO, Rachel Green, whom without them, this would not have been possible. And lastly, all of you for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I'd like to keep you here if I can, Rebecca. We're going to now move into a panel discussion. I'm just going to remind you again, I'm hoping the hashtags are on the screen there, but if not, hashtag you have eFriend and hashtag eFriend support if you'd like to join the social media conversation. And I'd also like to welcome to the panel two new guests, Irene Gallagher, the CEO of Being, the New South Wales peak body for mental health consumers, and Dr. Alex Haynes from the Illawarra Shoalhaven Suicide Prevention Collaborative. Good morning, Irene, and good morning, Alex.
Good morning.
Are we all, can I just check with tech, are we all online now and good to go for the panel?
Lovely. Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning,
everyone.
Irene. Look, I'm gonna throw the first question to you. From your point of view, what is the distinct value that peer work offers? What does it offer to people who might be new to having a mental health issue, people who might have had a mental health issue for a long time, and how does it sit within the broader scope of mental health services?
That's a really big question there. So I hope I can do that justice, but let's see how we go, and particularly off the back of Rebecca's comments as well. So thank you, Rebecca. That was wonderful. So peer work has become an absolutely instrumental component of many services, particularly in supporting services and organisations to implement and focus on recovery-oriented and trauma-informed practices, while also providing a valuable peer-to-peer relationship of mutual support and bringing together of people who share similar life experiences, and Rebecca demonstrated that so eloquently. And this is especially so during difficult times and challenging times, and I think this is why programs such as eFriend are incredibly important during this time of COVID and the challenges that many people face. And central to this practice of peer work, as I mentioned before, is the focus on recovery. And that includes hope and empowerment, social connection, as Christine mentioned just a moment ago, and bringing a human rights lens into services and systems and organisations. I guess, Rebecca, you mentioned it eloquently, that as people who live with mental health issues and emotional distress, we are role models that bring hope to people who may have thought that they would never be able to live a life that's meaningful and purposeful, full of achievements, and be able to contribute. And to be able to connect with a peer support worker that is the evidence that recovery is possible is incredibly immense. So peer workers certainly are role models. They are the instigators of hope and empowerment for many people, and are also in some ways bridges between services and the people we work with to have a better understanding around navigating services. Isolation, we know stigma, isolation, discrimination and loneliness are significant issues for people with mental health issues, and peer workers are helping to bridge those gaps and connecting with people. So not only is there some wonderful evidence of the efficacy of peer work and the benefit to services, to the clients, but there's also a threefold effect there, that there's the element of growth and learning for peer workers, that beautiful dance of mutuality and reciprocity that many peer workers and their clients experience, is such a growing and learning process for so many peer workers. So I hope I've done that question justice in a roundabout way. But yeah, I think congratulations on today and the launch of eFriend. It's a fantastic initiative.
Thanks, Irene. Alex, I'll throw to you next. A personal question: how are you going during this time of COVID? And could you also talk to us about what you think these developments mean, what you're hearing in terms of lived experience from the perspective of suicide prevention?
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. I'm going okay. Thanks for asking. It's pretty a tough situation for a lot of people in the community, particularly those who are trying to work from home at the same time as look after their kids. So I don't think I'm alone in that struggle. And I know that you and I have talked about that. Look, I think actually one of the things that's been happening in the recent disaster response that we've had in Australia, both to the droughts, the bushfires, the floods, and now the pandemic, and certainly the region that I'm from, the Illawarra Shoalhaven, we feel like we've been left reeling after being hit time and again by each of these disasters. But it's actually, I think, for the community kind of highlighted how mental ill health and suicidality can be triggered by life circumstances as opposed to being always associated with mental health issues. And that's, I think, translated to a real appetite for looking at what we can do to support people beyond the usual clinical response that we've always sort of fallen to. So I think that's a really important shift, and one that I guess we've been pushing for a while. And this new service perhaps speaks to that shift again, tries to mature it a little bit further. One of the things I guess that I think has been happening locally for us is that we've had some new services that have involved peer work, and when we evaluate how people have been finding those new supports, I think it's close to 100%, like 98% or something of people who are receiving those supports are saying that it's the peer work, it's the lived experience that is the most valuable component of those programs by far. So really having somebody who has walked in on this path before, as people have said before, demonstrate that hope and show that sort of undeniable wisdom through hard-fought experiences. I think it's really very powerful. And for my mind, it sort of changes the conversation from a what is wrong with you, which is perhaps traditionally the approach in a clinical setting, to a what's been happening for you, which is a very different kind of vibe. At the risk of sounding like the castle, but I think there's a real warmth that lived experience and peer work brings to this space, and that's clearly been something that people have been calling out for a long time. As one of the lived experience members of our local suicide prevention collaborative says, you wouldn't go to the mechanic for a sore tooth, and they sort of characterise this as like that. You want to go to somebody who's actually experienced what you've been experiencing, so that they can help you find the solutions to it. So no, I think it's really exciting, and I hope that there are lots and lots of initiatives like this that bring peer work and lived experience to the fore.
Thanks, Alex. I'll turn to you next, Rebecca. One of the things we've been doing here at ICLA since we moved many of our operations virtually is we've begun every meeting with how are you and how are you going during the challenging time that is COVID. So, Rebecca, how are you? How have you been coping through this period? And do you want to tell us also a bit about what it's been like for you being on the eFriend calls already as we've been testing that process?
Sure, thank you so much. It has personally, if I'm absolutely honest, been quite challenging for me. In a small contained space. I moved in with my partner a month prior to COVID-19, and we did not expect to be working and living together. But at the same time, it has required immense courage, and I've really experienced what real connection and support is, not only in my life but also in others. And to be part of the eFriend team it's really opened my eyes to the power of what we're doing here, and the importance for it. I have found working really closely with the team, I suppose, is a bit of a gift in a very unfortunate situation that we're all being faced with at the moment, and having to go virtual and, make the most of every single situation and the circumstances that we're in. I really believe that this is going to change change my perspective of life and what's important. And as far as the simple connection of one person helping another and the power of that. So I feel really gifted to be here this morning, and thank you very much for asking me, Rachel.
Thanks, Rebecca. I'm going to take a couple of questions that are coming in from the group. So there's 2 questions about carers and whether the service is available for carers or whether it will extend to carer peer-to-peer. So the answer is yes. The service is for everyone, and we do have carers with peers with carer experience in the team, and we can do matching if that's something people would like to request when they first sign up. So that's certainly something we can facilitate. But I think what's important also to note is that the service is designed and the team is trained and really multi-skilled to be able to provide that avenue for a supportive conversation and a debrief and a check-in. And it's really going to be guided by the people who are using it, who are calling in. As Alex said, it's what's happening for you, what's going on. And it could be that someone has had a long experience of managing their own mental health and just would benefit from someone else to talk to. Or it could be that someone's really just struggling with the current situation, hasn't felt like they could tell perhaps their immediate family. I know personally I've felt really high levels of anxiety during this period. We can sort of dive in and focus on our work, but then you read a bit of the news and the level of fear around coronavirus and what it could mean for family members, for example, can really cause a bit of a spike. And personally, what I do to deal with that is reach out to other peers and friends who have their own mental health lived experience, and that provides me great support. What eFriend does is make that available to everyone. I'm just seeing another question coming in about whether people have to connect via video. So the answer is no. There's an option for people during the sign-up process where if they prefer not to be on screen, we can just do it as a web-based call. But we're really excited to see the results. We'll obviously be doing feedback and evaluation of eFriend, and we'll be really interested to track who chooses which path, whether people like having the video on and being able to see the person they're talking to, and for whom a call is enough and is what they need. I'm just checking, are there other questions coming in from the field? Oh, yep. I'm being asked how many peer workers will be staffing the service as it launches. So we've got a current team, I think, of around 8 in the eFriend peer team. We are planning to do some further recruitment as the service scales up. So we're going to track demand and see how many we get, how many people start to use it. And we'll also probably shape the days and hours of operation. At the moment, we're going to be operating Monday through to Saturday. And we will be flexible to what the demand looks like. And if we see that people are using it more on a particular day or at a particular time, we will adjust around that basis. We have had to we have stood this up relatively quickly based on the work we'd already done to develop it as the pre-stay component of Spark, our suicide prevention and recovery cottage. But what it's meant is that we've been able to leverage the work that the team had already done in practicing and testing the modality and getting ready to deliver it. Just seeing another question coming in about whether session numbers are limited. Do you want to take that one, Rebecca? Can people call back more than once, and what are the boundaries around that?
Yes, absolutely. So to begin with, obviously, there is the 6 sessions, but we make it very clear at the end of those 6 sessions that we don't just drop them off and send them on their merry way. We are available again if they require the support and they need that connection. Obviously, we're providing, you know, all those things that I mentioned as far as like being understood and heard, but another aspect of it will be being able to provide goals and plans to move forward and build a entire support network. And if that means more than 6 calls, then we will definitely be available for them again. Thank you, Rachel.
I've got another question coming through from the audience. What is the best way to refer people to eFriend? So absolutely, efriend.org.au is the web address. And we do also have a phone number listed there for people who perhaps are having trouble getting access to the technology or would just prefer to connect by phone. We can just sign you up through a phone call and book in the sessions with you over the phone. And the number is 02 8090 3230. We will have a toll-free number fairly soon. We're just in the process of updating that this morning. Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So I'm seeing a question come in about how we're going to connect with people across the country. One of the main things we'll be doing from this morning is launching social media advertising across Facebook and Instagram. For those of you who have a social media presence, we would really love you to share our tiles and boost the message about eFriend out. We will be doing targeted advertising to reach people around the country. And we'd really love your support in helping us boost that on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. You can find, I believe, the ICLA social media accounts in the information that went out with the launch. And I think we'll also be doing a follow-up, asking everyone to help us really boost that message so it reaches as wide an audience as possible. If you're working in a supporting relationship with someone and you'd like to refer them to it, just bring them along to the website. I'm seeing a question now about people with psychosocial disability. Irene, if you're still with us, I wondered if you could take that question. What could this kind of service do for someone who has an existing psychosocial disability? How could it fit in, I think, with the kinds of services they might already be getting, for example, from the NDIS?
Thanks, Rachel. So I think it's coming back to the peer support role and that peer-to-peer relationship that potentially eFriend could offer. I mean, I'll probably have to be a little bit vague here because I don't know the whole background of eFriend, but from a peer-to-peer relationship, it's a very unique relationship that's not based on clinical practices. It is more peer-to-peer relationship and how people come together to support one another. Can you read the question to me again, Rachel? Apologies, because I don't have it on my screen.
The question is about how the service will function for people who are consumers and also carers working with someone who has a psychosocial disability.
Okay. I might have to throw that back to you purely because it's referring to the service, and I don't know enough about.
I think from my point of view, we see this at ICLA. So I think that the NDIS has been a game changer for people with psychosocial disability. They're finally receiving support funded at a level that's never been funded before to help with activities of daily living and accessing the community and things like that through their NDIS plan. But one of the things that is really critically important, I think, for people living with a psychosocial disability is being able to have that type of social connection that gives people a different type of relationship to engage with. We and everyone in this sector works really hard to, implement recovery-oriented practice and person-centred support, but ultimately the relationship between a disability support worker and a person being supported is one of it's built around disability support and the specific activities in an NDIS plan. eFriend potentially offers an adjunct to that. It's someone who connects from a more friend-based perspective using the befriending methodology that comes out of the UK. And we're actually really excited to see how the people we support through ICLA within our disability services use eFriend and what their feedback is on the service. We think that'll be really potentially a valuable extra person to connect with within their lives, because we know that many of the people living with psychosocial disability don't necessarily have friends and family around them. So this might be a brand new social relationship for them during a time that is incredibly isolating and concerning while we're experiencing COVID-19. I'm just seeing a question here about youth. So from today, the service is open and targeting people aged over 18, but we will be looking at expanding into a youth service. We don't see ourselves providing support to very young people. We think that that's better left to Kids Helpline and the very specific model that underpins that service. But we are looking at whether we expand down a little bit below 18 in terms of the people we pick up. And any young people that do try and register through the site, we will pick up their details and get back to them. They won't be left wondering. And we will help connect them to youth-focused services that are already existing, like Headspace online and others that are community-based. There was a question about operating times for people in WA, and I have here that it's midday to 8 p.m. So we will be available during your business hours. I think we might be coming to the end of the questions, which means I might take the time now to wrap up. I'd like to do that by thanking, firstly, Christine Morgan for being with us today and launching the service. Thank you so much, Christine. And my panel members, Irene, Alex, and Rebecca. Particularly, Rebecca, thank you so much for sharing your lived experience with us. It was really powerful to hear you speak. Once again, thank you to all of you in the audience for joining us. It's been amazing to see how many of you responded and have joined us here this morning. I believe the video of this launch will be live and available on the website in a little bit of time. In the meantime, we're launched, we're live. Please go and log on, efriend.org.au. It's for everyone. Go and test it out. We'll be doing continuous improvement, so if you have any feedback, I believe you can find our feedback policy and formats through the website. If you'd like to talk to anyone at ICLA about what we do or learn more about eFriend, please get in touch, and we'd love you to give us a shout out on social media and help us boost eFriend as a service. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, friends, for being here. Bye-bye.